This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Baruch Haba, welcome everyone. I was searching for a topic for Parshas Balak, and it's just such an amazing thing that I happened to open up to Parak Chav Daled, Pasuk Chav Daled in Parshas Balak, and lo and behold, we have a pasuk that talks about the ships, Vitzim miyad kitim, and ships will come out from the Kittites. The Ramban defines the Kitim as Romans, the Roman Empire. But even more amazingly, the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel defines Kitim as Me'ara Italia, from Italy. And it's just such a coincidence that I just happened to be needed a topic on Italy, and it fits so well into this one word that the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel brings down. So it's a good excuse to speak about a little bit of a very important historical twist, which is really the beginning and the foundations of all the Torah of the Rishonim. Now, the name of this story is well known. This story is dubbed in classic Jewish literature as the Arba Shvuyim, the four captives. So we have a sefer over here called Korei Hadoros. Korei Hadoros was written by Rav David Conforto. Don Conforto was nifter in the year 1648, and he brings down a story, and there is a degree of controversy about the accuracy of this story, but it is brought down in many authentic sources, the Maisa of the Arba Shvuyim, which happened in the times of Rabbeinu Shri Gaon. Rabbeinu Shri Gaon was one of the Gaonim, and this story happened approximately in the year Taf Shin Nun of the fourth millennia, the year Daled Taf Shin Nun. So the year Daled Taf Shin Nun is approximately the year 990. And basically, there were four great Chachamim who were traveling on a boat. And they were embarking from an area called Bari. Bari is a region in Italy. And they were headed to Sebastian. To four great Chachamim. Who were they? Chacham number one is Rabbeinu Chushiel. Rabbeinu Chushiel was the father of Rabbeinu Hananel. Everybody is familiar. Rabbeinu Hananel often appears on the side of the Gemara. Rabbeinu Chushiel. Rabbeinu Chushiel, the father of Rabbeinu Hananel. Number two, Rabbeinu Moshe, the father of Rabbi Chanoich. Number three, Rabbeinu Shmaria Bar Elchana. And says the Sefer Korei Hadoros, the fourth Chacham, I don't know who he was. And what happened was, they set sail, they embarked from Bari, and a pirate came along and got onto their ship, tied them up, took them hostage, and sold them as slaves. Well, there was a tremendous slave market. Very often, this was a pretty common thing, where wayfarers on the sea would be captured and be sold as slaves to the various countries. Now, Rabbi, so we're going to see more details as reported in other sources. And so this pirate took these four sages, and first they took Rabbeinu Chushiel. Rabbeinu Chushiel was sold to Africa. He probably North Africa, and he finally makes his way to Al-Karouan. Al-Karouan, I believe, is in Tunis, in Tunisia. And eventually, Rabbeinu Chushiel, he goes there, he has Rabbeinu Hananel, and the Rishonim that came from North Africa all started from Rabbeinu Chushiel. Okay. Now, by the way, just be aware, we're talking in the period of the Gaonim. In the times of the Gaonim, the main Torah center was in Bavel, was in Babylon. Surah, Pompadisa. You had an amazing Torah academy there, which was headed by Rav Hai Gaon. Now, what these four Chachamim were doing on the ship, there are different opinions. For now, we'll say they were collecting money for the yeshivas in Bavel. Okay. Now, this incident, we're going to learn, really transitioned Torah from Bavel to Europe. So that means until this point, all Torah in the world was in Eretz Yisrael and in Bavel. Now, Rebbeinu Shalom, Hashgacha Pratis, is taking four of the greatest sages in the world and placing them very strategically to four various areas. So Rabbeinu Chushiel goes to Africa, to Al-Karouan. There he becomes the chief rabbi. His son, Rabbeinu Hananel, one of the great Rishonim. Okay. Next, they take Rabbeinu Moshe and they take him to Cortova. Where's Cortova? right? Cordova in Spain. So they bring him to Spain, and Rabbeinu Moshe becomes the leader, the chief rabbi of Cordova, and following him, Rabbeinu Chanoich, his son, takes over. Now, at this point, there's a little bit of also a very unusual twist here, because even though Rabbeinu Moshe was obviously the greatest sage in Spain, his son, Rabbi Chanoich, there was some disagreement between Rabbi Chanoich and another Talmud of Rabbi Moshe. His name was Rabbi Yosef ben Shtanish. Now, when Rabbeinu Moshe died, Rabbi Yosef ben Shtanish, he wanted to sort of get a piece of the rabbinate, but at the time there was a great Jewish leader. His name was Chasidai ibn Shaprut. Remember back from your Jewish history. And Rabbeinu Chasidai ibn Shaprut maintained very powerful authority. He didn't let anybody usurp any power from Rabbeinu Chanoich. However, when Chasidai ibn Shaprut passed away, this Rabbi Yitzchak Shtanish, Rabbi Yosef Shtanish, he wanted to take some of the rabbinate. After all, you should know, Rabbi Yosef Shtanish wrote the first translation of the Gemara. So your first art scroll was written back, in the 10th century, but he didn't write it in English. He wrote it in Arabic for the king of Arabia. Okay, so just a little trivia. The first translation of the Gemara, and there was a lot of contention between Rabbi Chanoich and Rabbi Shtanish. Well, what do you do when if you have a machlokes? You put the other person in cherem. So Rabbi Shtanish was put in cherem, and he had to leave. So where does he go? He goes to Bavel. He comes to Rav Hai Gaon. Rav Hai Gaon was so happy to see Rav Shtanish, because Rav Hai Gaon did not like these four chachamim. These are not my words. These are the words of the Kari Hadores. Why? Listen very carefully. Until this point in time, all the Torah in the world emanated from Bavel. These four chachamim were supposed to be bringing back funds to Bavel. Now, each one of them is setting up shop in a different community. One of them in Tunisia. One of them in Cordova. We'll see the third one goes to Alexandria. And now all the funds are being channeled away from Bavel.
Four breakaways.
Yeah, exactly. So now you know, right? A shul's made it when there's a breakaway. Well, a yeshiva's made it when there are at least 3 breakaways. So Rav Hai Gaon was not happy with what they did. Ultimately, looking back at it, it's clear. You see the hashgach of Hashem. Just as an aside, so I learned in Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim. So the Rosh Yeshiva, when I came to Yeshiva, Rav Henoch Leibowitz, Zechatzach Levracha, was Rosh Yeshiva until his 90s. His father founded the yeshiva. His father was Reb David Leibowitz. David Leibowitz is considered one of the main Talmidim of the Alter Slobodka. Rav Pam once came to the yeshiva a long time ago. He spoke at Reb David Leibowitz's yard site. And Rav Pam said that throughout history, whenever the Rebbeinu Shalom sees the impending decline of Torah in one place, he always paves the way by sending shluchim in advance to prepare a country with Torah, like Hashem did with the Arba Shvuyim. And Rav Pam, I remember, he likened what Rav David Leibowitz was sent to America to start Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim. He started Yeshiva Tarvadas as well. And these were like one of the Dalit Shvuyim that the Rebbeinu Shalom, he was the first Rosh Yeshiva in Yeshiva Tarvadas. This is the Hashgacha Pratis. Any event, Rav Hai Gaon told Rav Shtanish, I have one problem. I like you very much, but you're in Cherem. Can't speak to you. Halachically, if someone is in Cherem, you can't converse with them. And Rav Hai Gaon sent Rav Shtanish away. Okay, so Rabbi Say, this is the famous story of the Arba Shvuyim. Just make note of the fact that these Chachamim emanated from Italy. They emanated from Bari. Okay, so pay attention to that. There's another ancient work. This sefer is called Seder HaKabbalah. The Seder HaKabbalah was written by the Ravid. Now everybody heard of the Ravid, right? There's a famous comment of Shakespeare, wherever there's a Rambam, the Ravid is not far behind. It's a joke, okay? So that's the Ravid. The Ravid is called the Baal HaSagos, right? If you ever learned the Rambam, you see in small letters, you have comments of the Ravid. Now, historically, if you're Jewish, you need to know this. There were 3 Ravids. There was Ravid HaRishon, there was Ravid HaSheni, there was Ravid HaShlishi. Okay? Who are these people? The Ravid that wrote Seder HaKabbalah is known as Ravid HaRishon. He wrote the Sefer Seder HaKabbalah. He was killed al Kiddush Hashem. That's Ravid Arishon Rabbeinu Avram ben David. Then you have Ravid Hasheni. And the Ravid Hashlishi is known as the Bal Hasagas. The Ravid who wrote the comments on the Rambam is Ravid Hashlishi. The Ravid Harishon, as far as I know, is the first source of this story. And the Ravid Harishon tells us that this story was Hashgacha, this story was the Yad Hashem to sort of end Torah in Bavel and transition it to Europe. He brings down a number of very fascinating tidbits and additions to the Maisa. First of all, he writes that these Chachamim were collecting for Achnasas Kala. Okay. He also adds, very interestingly, this Rav Moshe ended up in Cordova. His wife was with him on the ship. His wife was unusually beautiful. And the pirate has his eye on her, and she doesn't know what to do. She knows that the pirate could kill her husband and violate her. So she screams out to her husband in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh. She says to him, if I jump off the ship and I kill myself, will I have Tchias HaMesim? Right? Similar to what the Gemara says in Gittin, where the boys and girls were being taken off to Rome to be violated, and the Gemara says the girls jumped off, and they darshaned, Hashem mi bashan ashiv mimtzulas yam, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will retrieve all the bodies that were decimated and have been torn apart. The Rebbeinu Shalom will reconstitute them for Tchias HaMesim. And this is what Rabbeinu Moshe told his wife, that if you commit suicide to stop this Avera, you will deserve Tchias HaMesim. In fact, she jumped off the ship and she was Moser Nefesh al Kiddush Hashem. Let's go back to Cordova for a minute. Let's talk about what happened in Cordova. So Rabbeinu Moshe comes to Cordova. Interestingly, none of these Chachamim let on that they were big Chachamim, because they knew they were being ransomed and they didn't want the Jewish community to have to pay an exorbitant fee. So as far as anybody knew, they were just redeeming regular Jews. So Rabbeinu Moshe comes to the yeshiva in Cordova, and at the time the leader of the yeshiva was Reb Nosson. He was the Av Bezdin. And Rav Nosson is giving Shiur Masechta Yuma. Now at the time, says the Ravid in Spain, they didn't have strong knowledge of Shas. And Rabbeinu Nosson was teaching a Sugya Masechta Yuma. And the Sugya Masechta Yuma speaks about Al Kol Hazah Tefillah. Sugya Masechta Yuma. Al Kol Hazah Tefillah. And Rabbeinu Nosson is darshaning, and Rav Moshe speaks up. He says, you're obligating too many tefillos for the Kohen Gadol. And everyone turns around, looks at this, stranger who basically just came off the boat, wearing rags. Who is this guy? How do you know? And they started asking him, how do you know about Masechta Yuma? And he started to impress them in his knowledge. Whereupon Rabbeinu Nosson removes his cloak, steps down, and makes the following announcement. I hereby retire as Chief Rabbi of Cordova. I officially appoint Rabbeinu Moshe to be the next Chief Rabbi of Cordova. I venture to say this has never repeated itself in history, where somebody of high position willingly gave it up to somebody else. But you see back then that they're Mesiras Nefesh, and they only served L'Kadesh Shem Shemayim, whoever they felt would be the best choice for the job. So they willingly gave it up. Okay. By the way, in case you wanted to know the name of the pirate, that also the Ravid reveals to us. I don't know how the Ravid knew the name of the pirate. The name of the pirate is Ben Demachin. So you have that on the 6th line in number 2. Ben Demachin, who was dispatched by the king of Arabia, Eved El Rahman El Natsar. Okay? So just in case you were wondering. So this story is reported in the Sefer Korei HaDoros. It's reported in the Ravid Sefer, Seder HaKabbalah. And amazingly, the Chidah, who's considered... Now, Rabbis, if you learn one thing from tonight, you have to know, the Chidah wrote in an all-time great Sefer. The name of the Sefer is Shem HaGedolim. Really, everybody should have the Sefer. Shem HaGedolim, the Chidah wrote without computers. Even with computers, it would be nearly impossible to write a book like this. Modern day bibliographers marvel at what the Chidah was able to accomplish. Basically, it has 2 parts. The Chidah from memory recorded the name of every single Gold of Esau that lived before his time, and then in alphabetical order. So you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Gedolei Esau, people who you never heard of, who you don't even know anyone who ever heard of. And then the second half of the Sefer is hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of all the Sfarim that were written before the time of the Chidah in alphabetical order. Shem Hagdalim. And it's considered a very authoritative work historically. In other words, if the Chidah records something, so for example, when he writes about the Ravid, the Chidah quotes a Sefer, which I'm sure many of you heard, Shalshelas HaKabbalah. This is a historical work, and the Chidah basically debunks it as a work that cannot be relied on. He says it's not historically accurate. But what the Chidah writes, the Chidah was considered, the Chidah traveled all throughout Europe. He visited all the libraries, all the museums. He memorized manuscripts that were found everywhere, and he records in alphabetical order. So what I'm bringing out is, the Chidah brings down this Rabbeinu Chushiel, who was the Goin, who was ransomed off to Tunisia. He writes, Echad me'arba ga'onim shenashu b'mei Rav Shira. The Chidah basically records the story. He's one of the 4 Ga'onim that lived in the time of Rav Shira Gaon in the year 4750. And he writes, and he was redeemed to Africa, and he became the head of El Karoan. Okay. By the way, the Chidah says we have a tradition. We don't really know where any of the Ga'onim are buried, but it says the Chidah we have a tradition that if you go to Tunisia, that there are Ga'onim buried in Tunisia. Okay. When Rabbeinu Tam described this story of the Arba Shvuim, he dubbed it in the following way. He coined the following phrase. Everybody knows it's a pasuk in Yeshaya, and we all sing it on Simchas Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei soira udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. Yeah. Well, Rabbeinu Tam coined the following phrase: Ki mibari teitzei Torah udvar Hashem meyatarant. In other words, symbol of the fact that basically all the Torah that we have today came from Italy. From these 4 Chachamim, from Rabbeinu Chushiel, Rabbeinu Moshe, Rabbeinu Shemaria, and another Rishon or another guy who we don't know who it is. And to me, it's just amazing how it works out conveniently for me that I have to be speaking about this, and just Hashgacha Pratis, it happens to be that I'm talking about it this week. Just joking. That all the Torah that we have today should come from Italy. It's a little bit unusual, strange thing that the Torah that we have should come from Italy. Italy is the seat of the Roman Empire. That's the quintessential capital of Esau Russia. It's the seat of Christianity. That's where the Avi Avos Hatuma lives. That's where the Pope lives, and that's where Torah comes from. It comes from Kimi Bari Teitzei Torah, V'dvar Hashem Me'atarant. So maybe we could understand in the following light. We know when Yaakov Avinu came to steal the brachos from Esau, so Yaakov Avinu masqueraded as Esau, and he came in, and Yitzchak says, Hakol Kol Yaakov Hayadayim Yedei Esau, and Yitzchak gave Yaakov Avinu a great bracha, a wonderful bracha. He said, V'yitein l'cha Elokim mital hashamayim u'mishmanei ha'oretz v'roiv dagan v'sirash. Basically, Yitzchak Avinu gave Yaakov everything. And what happens? Esau comes in just as Yaakov Avinu is leaving. V'hir, right? Ach yatsa Yaakov. And Esau comes in, and he says, Ani Esau b'charecha, I came for the bracha. And the Bible says, Vayechrad Yitzchak charada gedola. Yitzchak was very scared. Boy, did I blow it big time. You're telling me I gave the wrong person the bracha. And Yitzchak says, what can I do? I have nothing left for you. I already ate everything. I gave Yaakov Avinu the bracha. So Yitzchak then says to Esau then says to his father, Vayomer Esau alaviv, havracha achas hi l'cha avi. You have one bracha for me. Barcheni gamoni avi. Please give me one bracha. Vayisa Esau koile vayev. And Esau cries. Simply, Yitzchak just had nothing left to give him. He already gave the bracha to Yaakov. There's nothing left. You don't save. It's not like you save up just in case a rainy day. This is, the end of his life. He gave everything to Yaakov. Vayan Yitzchak aviv vayomer elav. Yitzchak said to his father. Yitzchak, his father, said to him, you know what? I'll give you a bracha. Hine mishmane haaretz yia moshevecha. I will give you the fattest land. Umitala shamayim me'ol. And I'll give you from the dew of heaven. You hear the words? Hine mishmane haaretz yia moshevecha. Behold, from the fat of the land will be your habitation. Umitala shamayim me'ol. And from the dew of the heavens. Says Rashi, what bracha did Yitzchak give Esau? Says Rashi, Zu Italia Shel Yava. The bracha that Yitzchak gave Esau was, the boot. Gave him Italy. How strange. How does Rashi know that? All the pasuk says is, Mishmane ha'aretz yiyah moshavecha u'mitala shamayim. He gave him a fat land. Maybe that's, there are a lot of nice lands out there, a lot of beautiful countries. How does Rashi know? Zu Italia Shel Yavan. So there's an amazing comment from the Rebbe, Reb Heschel, who, by the way, was not a Rebbe. The Rebbe, Reb Heschel, was the Rav of Krakow in the times of the Shach. Actually, in the times of the Shach, there was no Chasidus yet. The Rebbe of Heschel was one of the great Achronim. He was in the times of the Megala Amukos. Megala Amukos was somebody who had Gilui Elyo. In fact, when the city of Krakow was looking for a Rav, they asked the Megala Amukos, who should we appoint? So the Megala Amukos opened up a Chumash. Hineni oimed sham lefanecha al hatzur. Rashi Tevois, Heschel. Heschel, he's the next Rav. Hineni oimed lefanecha sham. The Chida brings this down. Anyway, the Rebbe of Heschel says like this. You know how Rashi knows that the country that Yitzchak Avinu is giving Esau is the country of Italy? Very simple. Because Yitzchak had already given Yaakov Avinu every single country in the world. There's nothing left to give him. So the only thing he could give him is something that doesn't exist yet, that didn't exist. Now, which country didn't exist? The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos Anaf Nun Vav Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that when Shloimeh HaMelech married Bas Paroi, Gabriel HaMelech came along, right? The Gemara says, V'noatz Kavna B'yam, he stuck a reed in the sea, V'olav B'Sirton, and a sandbank developed, V'olav Nivneh Krach Gadol Shel Roimi, and that's where Rome was built. You hear this? It means the Gemara is saying that Italy never existed. Italy is like a man-made invention. Actually, not a man-made invention. It was created by a Malach. It's created by Malach Gabriel. Now, the Maharsha explains, Gabriel is the one who destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. But ultimately, the one who destroyed the Beis HaMikdash that we're suffering from are the Romans. So the way Gabriel set up Churban Beis HaMikdash is the moment Shloimeh HaMelech married Bas Paroi, which was really the initiation of Avodah Zarah to Klal Yisrael. They're the incipient, the seeds of Avodah Zarah. So at that moment, Gabriel already had to set the stage to have the Beis HaMikdash destroyed. It was at that moment that Rome began, that Italy was created. So Gabriel took the stick, he sticks it into the Yam, and then the sandbank begins to grow. That is the origins of Rome. So when Yitzchak is thinking to himself, you know what, Esau, I have nothing left to give you. I already gave Yaakov Avinu every single country in the world. There's nothing left. Oh, then he says, you know what? There's one country I didn't give him yet. There's one country that's Davar Shaloi Bala Olam. That's Italy. So I'll give you Italy because I never gave that to Yaakov Avinu. So in other words, that's how Rashi knows that Mishmane Ha'aretz U'mital HaShamayim has to be referring to Italy. By the way, just another interesting diok here is that the pasuk by Yaakov Avinu, it says, V'yiten l'cha leikim mital ha'shamayim u'mishmanei ha'aretz. First the dew, and then the earth. And then by Esau it says, Hine mishmanei ha'aretz yiyeh moshavecha u'mital ha'shamayim. So the Sefer Parshas Yosef brings down exactly, because when it comes to Yaakov Avinu already had the land. So for Yaakov Avinu, we could start off with the dew. The dew has what to fall on. So there's dew, and then the dew will create a certain richness in the land. So v'yiten l'cha leikim mital ha'shamayim u'mishmanei ha'aretz. But by Esau had no land. The country that Yitzchak was giving Esau did not exist. So by Esau it has to start in the other direction. By Esau it has to start, Hine mishmanei ha'aretz yiyeh moshavecha. I'm going to give you the fattest of land, and once the land has been established, only then will the Rebbeinu Shalom give mital hashamayim. So Rabbi Say, this really got me thinking of the following idea, and that is, aside from the fact that the Torah of all the Rishonim emanated from Italy, Kemat, most of the Kabbalah that we have today also emanated from Italy. So for instance, we already quoted the Chida. The Chida spent most of his life in Italy. Chida is one of the greatest all-time Go'inei Israel. Perhaps the greatest person who lived in the last 500 years. Somebody who, the Vilna Gaon said, he had the greatest understanding of Hashem of any human being. Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal. Chal spent his whole life in Italy until he was chased out. Interesting that all of the Sfarno, and all of this Torah, and the Ramami Pano, and the Moshe Chagiz, all of this emanated from the Shoresh of all Tumah in the world. So it could be that this is the one country in the world where Yitzchak Avinu, one of the Avos, actually blessed the land originally. In other words, every other place in the world, it emanates from Shamayim. It starts Mitala Shamayim. There's one country in the world where you see firsthand this country is the blessing of one of the Avos HaKadoshim. And we know there's a concept that every physical thing is merely a reflection of the spiritual. So if you see a country which is the fruition and the crystallization and the concretization of a bracha of Yitzchak Avinu, then it also has a very unique spiritual quality as well. And in that sense, that might explain to some degree why all the Torah in the world that we have today, or at least a very significant amount of it, emanates from that place. But just also on a much simpler level, had Shlomo HaMelech not married Bas Paroi, then there would have been no Churban Beis HaMikdash, and we wouldn't have gone into Galus, and we wouldn't have needed all of the Torah that would keep us and help us survive through the Galus. All of the Torah of the Rishonim, and all the Torah of the Mekubalim and the Achronim that emanated was only needed because of the Churban, because Shlomo HaMelech married Bas Paroi. So even though the Ribbanu Shalom, when Shlomo HaMelech married Bas Paroi, he's allowing for the creation of the thorn in our side, the Roman Empire, but also in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Makeh es Yisrael Elam Kein Boyer Lahem Refuah Tchila. So as Hashem is creating the source of Churban for Klal Yisrael, he's also paving the way through the Maisa of the Arba Shvuyim and through the creation of the source of the Torah that really lasts through the Golus. I mean, Kemat everybody is familiar and has learned and has been exposed to the wisdom of the Ramchal, of the Mesilas Yesharim, of the Derech Hashem, and of all of these Gedalim. So this is just by way of introduction, and we're going to have now one more brief topic.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.